everybody, this is Matt and we're at Texas Toast Guitars. Thanks for watching. I'm really excited for today's video because we're going to be discussing fretboard radius, and I'm going to show you how to do a fretboard radius, and I'm going to show you how to do a regular straight 12-inch radius. I'm going to show you how to do a conical fretboard radius, or some people call it compound radius. We're going to talk about the differences, and I'm going to show you guys some tools, I'm going to show you guys some techniques, and even if you don't have exactly the same equipment that I have, I think this is going to be really good because a lot of people have been asking me questions about fretboard radius lately. So I'm hoping that you guys really like this, and I'm hoping that you subscribe to the channel. I'm hoping that you click the little bell icon, and I'm hoping that you appreciate the content that we make here at Texas Toast, and you go over to our Patreon page and you become a member, or you join up on YouTube, something like that. And if you can't do any of that stuff, I totally get it, but I'd really like it if you went to the thing down below in the comment section where you leave comments and leave me a comment, or if you want to buy a t-shirt, something like that. But anyway, on with the show. So today I've done a lot more prep than I normally do for a standard video, because I think that when I do a bunch of stuff, you guys are going to go, aha, there's going to be some light bulb moments. So let's first talk a little bit about what I have done, and then we'll start making some fretboards. So I made two, now these are fretboard blanks, okay? They don't have slots on them, but these are two identical fretboards, okay? They're the same thickness and they're the same dimensions. You can kind of see here, I'll put them up. See what I mean? They are as identical as I can get them. And the reason that I wanted to make two identical fretboards, even though they don't have slots, is so that I can index them the same and show you guys exactly how I did this stuff. And you wouldn't go, hey, one's one and one's the other. So we made two exactly the same things. I also went ahead and drilled for the, let's see if we got, yes, the off body, or in this case, the on-body alignment pins for the fretboards, and they will potentially be able to index on the pins that are on the on my necks. Okay, so I can do that, and I have also got the same. Let's see if I can show you. I've got the same pins on my swinging arm fretboard radiusing apparatus, which we're going to talk about now. Okay, everybody, I've got the fretboard is attached to the swinging arm radiusing apparatus, and if you'll recall from a previous video, you'll remember that my apparatus has fixed intervals at 7 1/4, 10, 12, 14, and 16, rather than the slot that originally came with the tool from Grizzly. So that makes it nice because it's easy to set and it's fairly common locations. But you'll notice, and forgive the squeaking, I'm going to try to do this slowly, I'm set at 1, 2, 3, 12 on this arm, and you have to take my word for it, it's 12 on this arm here, and the whole rig swings in an arc like this. Again, forgive the squeaking. Okay, so it's a consistent 12 inches from this end all the way through and to this end, which is important to keep that in mind. It's an important distinction to make, because when we do the conical radius, it's going to be different. But in this instance, we're 12 inches here, 12 inches here, 12 inches here to infinity, and it's going to be perfect every time. Now, the platen is the apparatus is at an angle to the platen, but the platen is still flat. It's moving across it. Don't worry. I'm going to show you what it looks like when it's all done, but take my word for it for right now. When we're finished, it's going to be a 12-inch radius all the way down, and the angled platen will have very little, if anything, to do with the actual radius that we're going to impart. The reason that we have this angled is so that we use more of the belt. If we had it set right in the center and everything was perfectly parallel, the results wouldn't be any different, but we would burn up this part of the belt only rather than use the majority of the belt. Okay? So right now, this guy is set to where it's probably needs to come down a little bit, and so we'll do that now with the little fine-tuning mechanism. And then we will get down to business. That seems pretty good. The first belt that we're going to use is our 60 grit belt, and then we're going to switch to 150 grit. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do the majority of the material removal with the 60 grit. And let me get the vacuum going, and we'll get this show on the road. All right, so I'm going to purposely let this video run long on that, and I'm going to, at the risk of boring you guys, because that's how long it takes for the Grizzly Radius sander to actually go from flat to radiused. And I'm going to show you that here in a moment, but while I've got the tool kind of powered down, I'm going to switch to the 150 grit belt. And this is all pretty standard stuff because we've made this video before, right? In fact, we made it just the other day. So, as of right now, we have our radius, we have our 12-inch radius on the board. Okay, you can kind of see it right there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to clean up some of the sanding marks left over from the 60 grit belt with this 150 grit belt. Okay, and in order to do that correctly, we are going to have to lower the piece a little bit into the belt because the grit size is different, and that's just what you got to do. Okay. here is the 12-inch radius fretboard that we just did. And I'm going to show you that it is in fact 12 inches. Okay, so there's the 12-inch radius gauge. Now, I have found that there's not a lot of difference in the way a 10-inch radius looks or a 9.5-inch radius looks until you add light. So you see right in the center there, there's light poking out. And if we go to the 10, you can still see it right there, a little light poking out. But when we move to the 12 and shine a light, there's no light at all. Okay, because this guy, let me show you again, here's 10. Okay, and I've got my flashlight is like right up on the gauge here. You see light poking out from the middle there? And when we do the 12, flashlight is right up against it. Okay, look, you can even see the light. There's no light coming through because the 12-inch radius is perfect. And it's perfect all the way down. Okay, so look, we'll go to the very end and we'll go to the middle. We'll go to here, we'll go to the end, and of course the light is still on. You just couldn't see any light because this radius gauge was perfectly matched to the radius of the fretboard. Okay, so let's say that you've mastered the 12-inch radius, because that's day one stuff, and now you're ready to do a conical radius, or a radius that starts out at, let's just say 10 and ends at 16. That's a fairly common thing that you see on like Warmoth and I don't know, maybe Jackson. Some of those guys have 10 to 16 radius. And you can do that on this Grizzly tool, and I'm going to show you how. We're going to use the exact same setup, but we're going to make a couple of changes. Okay, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to set our next fretboard up exactly the same way as the first one, and that way we know that we get it exactly right, yeah? And of course we've got the little holes that are going to index on the little pins, and the little pieces of tape are going to work for us perfect every time, right? You just got to get them on there. Sometimes that's a trick. Okay, I like to, you might be like, hey man, what's the big idea with the clamp? I like to squeeze the fretboard onto the tape because this tape is pressure sensitive. All right, so now, if you'll remember, these two pivot pins are at the 7 1/4, 10, 12, 7 1/4, 10, 12. They're both at matching the 12-inch distance. So what we're going to do is we're going to relocate these pins so that they are at extremes. So we're going to take this wrench here and we're going to pull out the pivot pins. And I think it would be funny to do this at 7 1/4, but I'm actually gonna go to 10 on this side, which is the nut side of the fretboard. Okay, you definitely want it to go that way. You want the smaller number to be at the nut end. So, and then I'm going to move the I guess the bridge end pivot pin all the way up here to the 16. Okay, so that should get us pretty close to a 10 to 16 inch conical radius. Some of you guys are really smart though, and you're saying, well Matt, gee whiz, that's going to be 10 inch here and 16 inch, well actually here. And you're right. So you'll notice our fretboard actually comes to about the same the fretboard ends right here, which is about at the pivot point there, and it comes to about the end here at right around the 16. So this should work out to be pretty close to 10 inches at the nut and 16 inches at the end of the fretboard on the body side or the bridge side. But what that's going to mean is that anywhere in between that, it's going to be something else. The number is going to go from, it's never going to be less than 10, but it's never going to be more than 16, but it's never going to be 10 anywhere but right here, and it's never going to be 16 anywhere but right here. It's going to be something different in the middle. So let me get the machine set up, and I'll show you show you how to work it. All right, so dig this, gang. These upright pieces that the swinging arm apparatus goes in are adjustable up and down, which is going to come in handy because when we put one side at 10 and one side at 16, we're going to need to have them be, well, one's going to be taller than the other. So what we're going to do is we're going to set our fretboard onto the platen, and we're going to adjust these uprights so that they hold the pivot pins. Let me get that all fixed up. I won't bore you with how to do it. I'm going to get it all set, and I'm going to show you what it looks like when it's done. Okay, so I've got the rig set up, and what I want you to see is that this arc on this side is going to be different from this arc on this side, and it's going to swing slightly differently. Let me show you a different angle. Okay, so here's a different angle. Again, I apologize for the squeak, but okay, so that's what that's going to look like. Now, I think that as soon as we get this sanded down and I show you with the radius gauge, you guys are going to go, aha, if you're having trouble. So let's get some sandpaper on here and get this guy ground down. All right, so our rig's all set up. We're going to do it exactly the same way as we did the other one, only we've got 10-inch radius on this side and 16-inch radius on this side. I don't know if you can see 10-inch radius down on the nut end and 16-inch radius down on the body end or the bridge end. Okay, let's get the vacuum fired up and we'll do it. Okay, I'm hoping that you guys will be able to see this. So right now we have our 10-inch radius gauge right at the end, okay? And as you can see, I've got my light shining on the, you can see the light there. You can't see any light from under the gauge. As soon as I move the gauge to, let's say, 7 1/4, you will start to see light under, okay? But when I move back to the 10, okay, no light. Now, as I start to move this guy down, you'll start to see light, okay? Because what's happening is this radius is getting flatter, but my gauge is changing, okay? So notice that till it gets to right about here, you can't see any light peeking through, okay? And there you can. Now that doesn't mean that it's 10 inches from, you know, for the first 4 inches of the fretboard. It really just means that it's not as discernible. Further, and to that end, and I'm hoping that you guys can see this, down here at the close to the body, I'm not getting any light under my 16-inch radius on the gauge, but if I go to the 14, there's some peeking through, okay? So right now we have effectively built a 10 to 16-inch conical radius fretboard. So there we go, guys. That's how you use the Grizzly radius sander to do both a consistent, say in the case of what we made today, consistent 12-inch radius from one end of the fretboard to the other, as well as the conical radius that starts at 10 inches at the nut side and goes to 16 inches at the body side. So what does that get you? Well, it gets you a lot of theoretically good things, but very few actual things. And this is where I get a lot of pushback from people, because they start to tell me all the theoretical advantages of a conical radius fretboard. Things like, well, when you play a 10-inch radius in the chord, generally speaking, chord areas, the more curved radius is easier to play chords on. And as you get to the solo area, you want to have a flatter radius. Well, okay, theoretically, yes. That would mean that classical guitar players who play on fretboards that are perfectly flat can't play chords. Well, it doesn't mean that they can't play chords, but it means that they are fatiguing themselves when they are playing chords on a flat fretboard, which of course doesn't happen. However, if you have a very curved, say 7 1/4 fretboard that's consistent all the way down, it is possible that you can bend a note, say from this direction to up this direction, and actually fret out because the string starts to hit the other frets. Okay, hence the fret out. The flatter the fretboard, the less fret out you have when you're bending. Now, if your fretboard was dead flat, like a classical guitar or an electric guitar that just didn't have any radius on it, you could bend all the way until the string breaks and you won't fret out. So if fretting out in the soloing area is really a thing to you, and having having the least amount of radius, the flatter radius, the flattest radius you can get is ideal for the solo area, unless you don't play any bends. Jazz guys can probably get away with whatever they want. If playing chords becomes fatiguing to you, the flatter your fretboard is, then perhaps you know, the conical radius fretboard is the hot setup. And I realize I'm holding the standard radius fretboard as I'm doing that. But yeah, but for the most part, the advantages are fairly theoretical. If you say stuck with a standard 12-inch radius board, you probably won't have any issues fretting out. Or if you just went with, you know, a straight 16 or 14 or something like that, 20, I don't think you're going to get so much hand fatigue when you're playing chords that it becomes an issue. But If that's something that you dig, then by all means, the conical radius fretboard is a way to go. I also told you that I would talk about what a compound radius is. Now, the terms are used interchangeably, but one is one thing and one is a very different thing. A conical radius fretboard is 10 inches here, in this case, 16 inches here at this case, and somewhere in between, all the way in between. A compound radius, I guess, grammatically would be one thing here and one thing here, or it would be 10 inch to the middle, say, and then from the middle it would be 16 the rest of the way. So it would be, or you could have variations. You could have, it's going to be 10 here and 12 here and 14 here and 16 here. Nobody's going to do that. I say nobody. Most people aren't going to do that, and what they're talking about when they say compound radius is actually conical. So you can use those terms interchangeably and no one will care. This is my channel, so I can say whatever I want. I can call it anything I want. And frankly, conical is more correct because it's a cone, right? So anyway, if conical radiuses or compound radiuses are your thing and you have one of these grizzly sanders, that's how you would do it. Of course, there are lots of ways you can do a fretboard like this if you don't have a grizzly tool, but you're going to have to figure it out for yourself. I think that what it's probably going to be is lots of different size radius blocks and a lot of handwork. I went ahead and let the video run long because I think you guys kind of appreciate this long format stuff. And I also like to let you know that, look, it doesn't take very long for this machine to do what it's supposed to do. So anyway, if you guys have any questions about this, please put your comments and questions in the place where you put comments and questions. Like I asked earlier, if you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. And if you appreciate the kind of content that we do here at Texas Toast Guitars, I implore you, go over to our Patreon page and become a member. You can also become a member on YouTube. So until next time, this is Matt at Texas Toast reminding you that if you're so smart, I guess leave a comment in the comment section after you start your own YouTube channel. That's what I did. And we'll see you next time. Have a great week, everybody.